Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. In 49 BC, Julius Caesar stood on the banks of a small, unassuming river, the Rubicon. By crossing it with his legions, he defied the Roman Senate, committing an act of treason. Alia iacta est, he declared. The die is cast. This wasn't just a bold move. It was a declaration of war against the very heart of Rome, and against its most powerful man, Gnaeus Pompeius Magnus, Pompey the Great. They say all good things must come to an end. And that was certainly true for the first. Once they were allies, bound by a pact of power charade that secretly governed Rome, but their ambitions and the sheer scale of their influence simply couldn't coexist. Caesar, fresh from conquering Gaul, was immensely popular with his veteran legions and the common people. Pompey, the seasoned general, was backed by the Senate and the old guard of the Republic, who feared Caesar's growing autocracy. So as the mighty Caesar strode forth from northern Italy into Rome, the Senate, manipulated by Pompey, ordered Caesar to disband his army. Caesar refused. The stage was set for a confrontation unlike any Rome had ever seen. It may seem hard to believe today, but even senators of ancient Rome knew the art of political spin. They decided to condemn Caesar, calling him a traitor and a usurper. Meanwhile, Pompey basked in the glory of being the defender of the Republic, the champion of the people, the one true hope against Caesar's tyranny. But Caesar had a few tricks up his sleeve, too. You see, it was the height of the Roman Republic, a time when Rome stretched from the North African coast to the British Isles and was involved in endless wars and conflicts. The vastness of the Republic meant that governors and generals often stayed outside Rome for years, commanding armies and collecting power. When Caesar returned from Gaul, he did exactly this. He paraded his legions, his spoils, and his prisoners of war in the streets of Rome, putting on quite the show. Everyone was awestruck by his achievements. He was called the conqueror of Gaul, the liberator of the oppressed Gauls, the hero of Rome. This display of power, combined with the senators' condemnation of Caesar, rallied the masses behind Caesar. But why did Caesar refuse the Senate's demands to disband his army? Why did he declare open war on Rome? To understand this, we need to look at the man Caesar called his greatest rival, Pompey the Great. Like most successful politicians of today, Pompey knew how to play the game. He cultivated alliances, kept enemies close, and won the adoration of the common folk with carefully crafted shows of power. After defeating the pirates in the Eastern Mediterranean, he proudly displayed their gold coins, jewels, and captured ships in the Forum. As news of his victories spread across Rome, so did the stories of his greatness, of his unmatched skills in war, his wisdom, his bravery, and eventually his godlike status. It's important to remember that in those days, there were no national borders in Europe. Only rival Italian states and provinces that constantly fought amongst each other. Rome's vast network of roads connected everything and everyone, allowing ideas, trade, and armies to move freely. While Rome was able to control her colonies and provinces directly, she also ruled others indirectly by appointing client kings. These monarchs paid tribute and followed Rome's orders, or at least they were supposed to. Pompey's father, Gnaeus Pompeius Strabo, had once been a Roman consul and was currently propraetor in the East. In this position, he had rebelled against Rome and declared himself king of Asia Minor. For 12 years, he waged war against Rome until he was finally defeated by the Roman general Lucius Cornelius Sulla. After the defeat of his father, young Pompey knew exactly what he wanted. No doubt influenced by his family's history, he did not want to be a mere senator or magistrate in Rome. He wanted the highest office in the land, the consulship, with determination and perhaps some charm. He went to Rome at the age of 19, joined the Optimates, the party of the Senate, and began his ascent to power. Pompey's relentless pursuit of glory took him to the farthest corners of the known world. He campaigned against the pirates in the Mediterranean, defeated rebellious slaves in Africa, quelled revolts in Asia, and pacified Hispania. During these wars, he won several stunning victories and earned the title of the Great, but his military prowess and political maneuvering did not go without rivals. Men like Gaius Marius, a fellow general who felt overshadowed by Pompey's triumphs. Their competition for glory would have profound consequences for Rome. As Marius and his followers maneuvered to secure power, the social war erupted. Rome's Italian allies rose in rebellion, demanding full Roman citizenship. This conflict tested the very foundations of the Republic. Eventually, Rome triumphed. Marius and the populares emerged victorious, gaining control of Rome. But this victory came at a high cost. Rome was deeply divided, and the Republic's future teetered in the balance. Amidst this chaos, a new threat emerged, a threat that transcended the confines of Rome. The Pontic king, Mithridates VI, capitalized on Rome's turmoil, launching a massive invasion of the East. He assembled a formidable force of over 80,000 troops and marched into Roman Asia. Realizing the gravity of the situation, Rome turned to Pompey for help. Now, at the peak of his powers, Pompey faced down Mithridates' invading army. In a series of brilliant campaigns, he crushed the Pontic forces and defeated their king. Pompey's victory secured Roman dominance in the East and established him as the greatest general of his time. But his triumph came at a cost. He had fought against Rome itself and emerged victorious. Returning to Rome as a triumphant hero, he paraded his captives and boasted an astonishing record of 174 victories in 177 battles. Now, at the height of his power, he was hailed as a living god, the victor of the 7 hills. However, little did he know that another contender was waiting in the wings, eager to challenge his supremacy. Caesar's legions were on their way home from Gaul, and their return threatened to eclipse Pompey's glory. In fact, these two rivals had once been allies, bound together by a secret pact known as the First Triumvirate, along with a shrewd politician named Crassus. But as their ambitions grew, so did their paranoia. And when Crassus died unexpectedly in battle, the uneasy alliance between Caesar and Pompey began to unravel. Then Caesar returned from Gaul. The provinces out east and in Africa became a battleground for their rivalry. Pompey's hold on power began to slip as Caesar's popularity soared. In 49 BC, the two rivals were at a political crossroads. The Senate, largely controlled by Pompey, demanded that Caesar disband his army and return to Rome to stand trial for his crimes. Caesar hesitated. He had built an empire in Gaul, and leaving it unprotected seemed unwise. On the other hand, defying the Senate could lead to civil war. Still, he had an ace up his sleeve. He sent word back to Rome, declaring that he would comply with the Senate's demands. He would disband his army, but this was just a ruse. Instead, Caesar chose defiance. He crossed the Rubicon with 10 legions, thus committing an act of war against Rome. So now the unstoppable Caesar was loose on the Italian peninsula. And to make matters worse, the main body of Pompey's army was out of the country. Only a few legions guarded Rome itself. Pompey, seeing that resistance was futile, retreated to Greece, hoping to raise an army there. But Caesar was already on his trail. He swept through northern Italy, winning town after town with ease. Pompey's forces were caught off guard and unprepared. The Senate's strategy had backfired. Throughout Italy, the pro-Caesar party seized control, and those who supported Pompey found themselves on the run. It seemed that Caesar would soon be marching on Rome itself. Sensing the inevitable, Pompey fled to Greece, where he hoped to rally his supporters and form an army to oppose Caesar. He might have gotten away with it, too, if it hadn't been for Caesar's insatiable desire for power. While Pompey was raising his army, Caesar's officers urged him to strike quickly. They knew that if Pompey had enough time, he would grow his army and become unstoppable. Caesar considered his options. If he stayed in Italy, he would face Pompey's full force. If he chased Pompey, he risked missing an opportunity to secure his position in Italy, but his ambition won out. Caesar chose to pursue Pompey, venturing into the unknown. His goal was clear: capture or kill Pompey and end the civil war once and for all. Crossing the Adriatic Sea was perilous. Storms raged, threatening to destroy his fleet. Pompey's navy controlled the waters, and it seemed like the odds were stacked against him. But Caesar pressed on. When his fleet finally reached Greece, only a fraction of his army remained. Undeterred, Caesar wasted no time. He started marching inland, determined to catch up with Pompey before he could assemble his forces. He traveled through rugged mountains and unfamiliar lands, always keeping his eye on the prize. Meanwhile, Pompey was racing to raise an army. Everywhere he went, people flocked to his banner, eager to join the fight against Caesar. Soon, he had amassed a force of over 45,000 men, far larger than Caesar's. Undaunted by the odds, Caesar's army moved swiftly and decisively. They battled across Thessaly, engaging Pompey's cavalry and forcing them to retreat. All the while, Caesar was looking for an opportunity to trap Pompey's main force. Finally, at the village of Pharsalus, Caesar found his chance. He engaged Pompey's army in a desperate battle. The outcome was uncertain. Pompey had the advantage in numbers, especially in cavalry, but Caesar's legions were well-trained and battle-hardened. Caesar's cavalry crashed into Pompey's ranks, sending them reeling. In the chaos of battle, Caesar's eagle standard bearer was killed and his standard taken, but Mark Antony retrieved it, rallying the troops and turning the tide of the battle. Despite being outnumbered, Caesar's army fought with tenacity. One of Caesar's centurions recalled his soldiers' bravery. They faced 5 enemies for every one they had and endured hardship and exhaustion without flinching. As the battle raged, Pompey watched anxiously from a distance. He knew that this was a critical moment. Victory here would secure his position and allow him to crush Caesar's forces. But it was not to be. Pompey's army, despite its size, faltered. Caesar's discipline and strategy prevailed. Finally, Pompey's cavalry broke ranks and fled. At that moment, Caesar's victory was assured. Across the centuries, the clash at Pharsalus stands out as one of the most pivotal battles in history. It marked the end of the Roman Republic and the beginning of the Roman Empire. While Pharsalus was a decisive